What's up, y'all? It's Chris, arch-usa.com. Make sure you guys are liking and subscribing to the videos. I'm really going to try and grow the station, man. There's so much good stuff on here that I'm wasting time when I don't ask you to like and subscribe. So let's get to it. I'm going to stop talking and get to it. Marc Bain. If you guys look over here to the side, I'm never going to get this right. Never going to get this right. Marc announced this morning that they're in the early days of a drop shipping program with Nike. FootLocker is in the early days of a drop shipping program. This is super problematic for FootLocker. Now, a lot of people are going to say to themselves, I'm not sure why you say it's super problematic. It's a good thing Nike is going to work with FootLocker to do XYZ. Greg Garber is a manager at Eblens. Eblens is one of the accounts that Nike got rid of. Over 40 stores, Eblens will not be carrying Nike footwear anymore, Nike or Jordan brand. Greg Garber is one of the best managers in retail and should be writing a book about Nike retail, managing stores. He works at an urban account. Super smart guy. So I need to go backwards to get forward. And like I said, this is complex, man. It's going to be hard to explain. Back in 2017, prior to Nike doing their announcement of the consumer direct offense, right? They did a flash sale. As a matter of fact, let's pull back a little bit. The flash sale was after the announcement. In October was the Investors Day for Nike. So the consumer direct offense had been announced. They did this flash sale, and at the time, analysts said that Nike is really in trouble because, if you remember, people had stated that Adidas had jumped the Jumpman, or Yeezy jumped the Jumpman. And I was like, that's not correct. All of you guys are wrong. You're looking at Nike and not understanding that they no longer report futures. Like I said, this is not easy to talk about. It's going to be a little bit confusing, but for those of you who understand what I'm talking about, just nod your head. I can't see you. Here is the information, and I'm going to read parts of this. It's the reason that Nike actually increased revenue from last year, although they lost retail. So remember, back in 2016, when people were talking about Nike decreasing in revenue, the analysts no longer had the information from Nike's direct sales to the consumer. So it would look like a 24% drop from retail for Nike, but the reality is that Nike had increased their margins because they were grabbing people through their digital offense. Okay, so when they did the flash sale, it was to capture information. FootLocker is going to allow Nike to drop ship to their consumer. Put two and two together. I'm going to put both fingers here. Put two and two together. And if you remember the flash sale and how much information Nike captured in this quote, the flash sale is a marketing tactic which drives engagement on Nike's platform and gives customers the perception they are getting an awesome deal. In reality, Nike is adding all of these consumers to their list. If Nike is drop shipping to the FootLocker consumer, FootLocker has no idea what's in the box when Nike ships. There could be additional items for discounts in the future, and it will literally leapfrog customers that Nike currently may not have access to. It would leapfrog customers into Nike's digital funnel. Let's keep going. Like I said, this is not quick. Back in 2016, I talked about something called brand gating. I wrote in the book about it, but a lot of people at that time, nobody was really following me on Twitter or LinkedIn, and I've been writing for a lot of years, and it just wasn't being seen. And I talked about brand gating. Right now, a lot of people have no idea what it is, so here's the paragraph that I just highlighted for you. Brand gating is the process of an e-commerce platform making agreements with brand distributors to limit the ability of third-party sellers to sell a product on that e-commerce platform. Brands do this for a number of reasons. One, it helps them control their market and limits the decrease in value of products that have been bought wholesale. Two, brands do this to control counterfeits. Now, both of those Options look like win-wins, but it's not a win-win. So when you have brand gating taking place, as a seller, I was on Amazon, and when they began brand gating, I could no longer sell Asics, certain New Balance, certain Adidas shoes. As a reseller, that cuts me out of a lot of ground on Amazon, right? Now, what does this have to do with anything? Let's keep going. Like I said, this is not straightforward, man. We're going to be here for a minute. I'm going through all of these articles so you can see it. I'll put all of the articles in the description, and I really hope that this is kind of clear the more we go. I said a while back, FootLocker, Finish Line, and all footwear stores will continue to face problems. Now, I highlighted a section here. In the article above, I talked about FootLocker's connection to Nike and how it was a benefit for them. This was over 3 years ago. Remember, this article was written in 2018. The connection remains a benefit as Nike has discussed FootLocker as one of the few footwear chains that it will remain connected to as they implement their plan to control 80% of their distribution through their own doors. 80%. The problem is Nike drives direct sales, FootLocker is directly affected. Where Nike goes, others follow. In both Under Armour and Adidas' recent annual reports, they discuss considerable growth in DTC. As brands begin to act more like Warby Parker and less like brands using traditional retail or traditional distribution, retail is going to feel the pressure. That's important because, as I said when I talked about the flash sale, when a company has access to your consumer, they can eventually minimize you. Now, Greg Garber talked about an issue called showrooming, and he predicted, we were talking and had a conversation, he predicted that eventually somebody else, actually David Kahan, the CEO of Birkenstock, we were all in this kind of chat on LinkedIn and we were discussing showrooming. And David Kahan said, I can see a future where Nike utilizes, he was saying where brands utilize retailers simply as showrooms. Now, Greg was talking about showrooming in the sense that the unbanked customer, which, somebody else just left a comment and they were talking about it. My bad, I apologize that I can't remember your name. And he was asking, isn't Nike overlooking the consumers who are not digital? And this goes to a section in the book where I talked about unbanked and underbanked consumers and the fact that they aren't digital. COVID expedited the process of people becoming digital. There's so much to cover here. I'm going to have to continue going and talking about this. But Greg, who talked about showrooming, right? And people coming into the store, looking at a product, and then going to buy online. Greg is at an urban account. So for Greg to raise this issue at an urban account means that that unbanked consumer was now transitioning into the digital marketplace. Go back 5 years, 6 years, when Amazon began allowing a lot of people to just flood the third-party marketplace with sneakers, my returns grew to 30%. It literally put me out of business on Amazon. The return rate was 30%. It's one of the reasons I talk about StockX being so prominent. So let me keep going here because we got a few more things to get to. All right. Eventually, brands may start using stores as showrooms. You walk in, you look at what's on the wall, and then you make the order and it comes to your house, or you can come in the store and pick it up, which has a tie to Nike's Konbini concept, where Nike in Japan began using bodegas to create what is similar to an Amazon locker. This should be at least 3 weeks of a college course. It's hard to get into in great detail here because we can't cover it all. I'm going to bring everything full circle though. Really hope you guys are still with me. Let's keep going. Nike is opening 30 stores, and I've said, why is this important? Now, during the last conference call for Nike's impressive $11.2 billion quarter, and this is December 31st, 2020, the company announced that they would be opening 30 stores in 21. They added they would be opening even more in 2022. The Nike Consumer Direct acceleration, remember it's changed from offense to acceleration, is an impressive concept, but because Nike still has a considerable number of wholesale partners, I believe they will have to encroach not just on mom and pop shops, but on bigger accounts like FootLocker. I said this in December, and today we get an announcement once again from Marc Bain that they're going to use FootLocker for dropshipping. How can you not? And FootLocker doesn't have a choice. JD Sports is not going to have a choice. This is a pilot that Nike is going to initiate here, and they're going to carry throughout their wholesale accounts. They'll continue to send them shoes, but they will also continue to get digital information from those brands and consumer addresses, consumer phone numbers. They'll still be able to indoctrinate people at those accounts in those sales funnels for those brands. They'll indoctrinate them through, because even I did this, and Amazon doesn't like you doing this. I would put cards in my shipments that would give people a discount on their next purchase. That's just a smart business tactic. You can't believe that Nike is not going to do that. I don't care who you are. At this point, I'd be asking questions if we were in class. Let's keep going. JD Sports, and I said this month. This was at the beginning of the month. JD Sports is overpaying for U.S. retail and acquiring sneaker chains. Recognizing that they're paying the type of money that they're paying, here's a section where I highlighted just so I can read this. Possibly, but that isn't the biggest issue, right? FootLocker is rightfully looking towards private label and acquisitions of businesses that can operate beyond a relationship with Nike. FootLocker is giving themselves a chainmail, a coat of armor, to protect themselves from Nike's continued encroachment on the consumer, getting to the end user. Foot Locker's protecting themselves. They have relationships with designing firms. They have relationships with smaller brands. These relationships are not considerable enough to offset the encroachment of Nike. However, if Foot Locker can reduce their inventory, it helps. Foot Locker will then have to begin reducing their footprint. Did you guys catch what I just said? As Nike begins to utilize the showrooming concept of drop shipping, Foot Locker is going to have to get rid of these locations that are in these dying malls. But they really can't, because that end user who is in the urban account, the underbanked and unbanked, that consumer is not completely digital yet, and Nike still has to find a way to get to that consumer. So in that sense, Foot Locker is protected, but they're also protecting themselves by creating these connections and these absorptions of businesses like Network, launching Greenhouse, Pensole, there's just Rockets of Awesome, which is not doing so well, and then I can't bring up Superheroic, but you guys get what I'm saying here. As these brands begin to get absorbed, I can see things happening. Yesterday, I talked about the company Natural Fiber Welding. The investments that Foot Locker has made have been decent. Foot Locker has enough capital to invest in Natural Fiber Welding. Now, that's just me as a person that's connecting the dots and trying to see what company is going to be smart enough to utilize this new sustainable company that's introducing products, or going to be introducing products. This is me in a brainstorm session with myself. In 2015, Nike announced a goal of getting to $50 billion a year in revenue. They obviously aren't close. They're right around $41 billion. COVID-19 has helped Nike to expedite a few questionable business decisions that aren't being given scrutiny because they happened during this pandemic. In order to hit 50 billion, Nike is opening another 30 stores. But to attain that elusive 50, Nike will either have to increase their share of the market through wholesale relationships, or they will have to continue with their consumer direct acceleration and build more doors to reach the consumer. I knew that they would utilize the showrooming to get to the end user at their wholesale accounts. I said it in the book back in 2019, and now it's starting to bear fruit. And I'm not trying to say, hey, I'm smart. I'm smart. All right, so let's keep going to this last piece. And it's one that no one in the sneaker industry has been discussing at all. In this book, yeah, I'm marketing myself. In this book, I talked about this. See if I get this right. Bam. All right, I got it right. 10 reasons why the Adidas Campus 80 StockX IPO was the most important drop of the year. Nike, in essence, is doing what StockX did with Adidas last year, and StockX also did this with New Balance last year. StockX is super impressive, not because of their authentication, but because they are smart enough to create a concept that allows a brand to completely skip over retail. Let's see if I highlighted a section in here. Let's scroll down. This is a good one to end on because this is a lot, man. I know it's a lot. I don't apologize because this is what I do. I get into a really deep hole of conversation and I hopefully stimulate dialogue and we all get smarter. Number 10 in my top 10 reasons why that IPO with StockX is important, especially related to what Marc Bain, because I have to make sure I give Marc a shout out for delivering this information because I did not get on the conference call this morning. I've repeated this throughout. Not one retail outlet was needed to sell a limited release product not attached to a famous entertainer or athlete. In my book, I stated that retailers needed to begin functioning like brands. Since they don't have their own private labels to create stories around, they need to create content for all of the brands they carry. StockX delivers the story of the shoe via their news section on the site. Then they carry the story to their social media pages. They build interest around the products with engaging content and imagery. And if StockX had a physical location, they would have had a line for an Adidas shoe made by Helen Kirkham. Helen Kirkham ain't yay. And she didn't have to be. And this could happen every month and it wouldn't burn out the masses on the sneaker side. The IPO report was written on October 23rd. Now remember, I wrote this a while back. Since then, the Kirkham Continental 80 is the shoe that was used in the IPO, has been resold at a markup of 162% above retail. The demand for that model, created exclusively for a drop through StockX, is still there. One of the most powerful things in the sneaker industry, and you can go through sneaker YouTube and not a damn person talked about it, except me. But how does this relate to StockX? How does it go backwards and relate to FootLocker? I said StockX, I feel so bad. Marc Bain has given us information that is extremely important and vital to our dialogue about what's happening in the sneaker industry. We have to pay attention and we have to look at it because there are openings. That's what I'll end this on. There are openings that are available for smart business people. And remember, I always try to tie this back to sneaker culture and the idea of no longer just being a consumer. There are openings that are being made in the sneaker industry because Nike is attempting to get directly to their consumer. We shouldn't look at this as a bad thing, although there are going to be store closures, I think, as this program ramps up. There will be store closures. But showrooming is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. Nike can also use this to offset issues with bots, potentially. There's a lot here, a lot to unpack. I really wish I could just break this down into a class structure. I can't. I wish I could. I don't get paid to do this, man. I make the majority of the money I make in resale. God knows if I didn't have to do that to inform all of the writing, I would spend more time on the educational aspects and try to give you guys everything I can on a daily basis. But that's not the way it works. This doesn't get a lot of love. It's not the hot new, this your boy, and this is the new Jordan stuff. But it's the stuff that makes you smarter. And I'm okay with not making a dime doing it. I prefer that I could. But please follow people like Marc Bain. Follow people like me even. Look beyond the simple surface of, ooh, the Dornbecker is a new drop from Nike. Look beyond the surface, because if you don't, you're creating a situation that's going to limit your opportunities in this industry. Everybody can't work for Nike. Everybody can't work for them. But you can look at the openings, and you can create products and ideas that will give you a chance to potentially disrupt Nike. And I'm not saying that Nike needs to be disrupted or anything else. I'm simply saying that we have to be more informed and smarter. Hopefully this helped you a little bit. A whole lot that goes into it. Man. Shout out Marc for dropping that information. And it's Friday. We're supposed to be chilling. Now you guys are sitting here watching a 20-something minute video. I appreciate you. Hitting a car alarm. That was dumb. See you guys on the next one. Have a great weekend, y'all. Peace.